are not going to tell you the truth. The simple reality is that if you don't have internet, you need to make sure that you are getting it somehow. I don't care if you go to the library, or I don't care if you go to a friend's house, but I'm sorry to say, we lost her. She's on a mobile phone, folks. I'm sorry to say that if you don't have internet, you're playing into the hands of the propagandists who want you to believe exactly what you're being told by the mainstream media. They're lying to you flat out. And if you want proof of that, in the new NDAA, they're trying to pass the ability for them to continue to feed you propaganda. Wait a second. Let me rephrase that. Not to continue to feed you propaganda. They want to release the United States government from the barring prohibitions against using propaganda on the American people. Now, this is third world propaganda that we're talking about here, folks. They're trying to get the federal government released from the prohibitions on misinformation, disinformation, and psychological ops on the American people. So your Freedom of Information Act will be ended. If you don't educate yourself, there is no other way to educate yourself except reading. And the only place that you're going to be able to find current stuff, because by the time you get it in print in a book, it's too late. It's too late. It's already passed. You can't educate yourself and read about things that Congress is currently trying to do, like the new NDAA for 2013, where they're going to pass propaganda laws. You've got to have access to the internet. And, I mean, look, I'm the first one to tell you that it's the devil's tail in a lot of areas. But in this one area, you've got to use it as the one tool that you can against the encroachment and the tyranny that we are seeing. I'm sorry, that's my pitch.
Well, that's really true, Mike. I mean, you've really got to be able to access that information. The Bible talks about my people perish for lack of knowledge, and if we don't get knowledgeable about these issues, and the best way I know is to get on the internet. I mean, a lot of libraries have it where you can go.
Restaurants have free Wi-Fi everywhere.
Just use a simple browser, type in NDAA, type in Agenda 21 into the browser. Anyone can do that. We can take 3 hours and watch a American Idol program, but we can't take a little time to get educated about what's happening to your country.
Well, folks, you must have access to this. I don't care if you take a laptop and go to McDonald's and sit in there and have a coffee and use their free Wi-Fi. Get access to the internet. I know that we live out in the hinterlands here. I mean, as far as, the realities of broadband, I realize that it's not there. But you've got to be able to educate yourself. And the only way you're going to do that is to have access to immediate, current information. Yeah. We've got to take a break. It is the bottom of the hour, and I thank you for your call, caller. But I can't. I can only tell you one thing. Then get access to it. Make it your business to do so. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. This is Mike Manchin. You're listening to 107.1 The Point. We have Bob Parker with us this morning. He is running for Congress, and he is running, of course, in the 8th District here. Our telephone numbers are 257-1111 and 866-554-6636. So we were talking we started to talk a little bit about this NRA issue, and one thing I just want to bring out, which is that, in my opinion, the NRA, while they certainly do some good work, I think there are two other gun organizations out there which are far better. And one of them is the Gun Owners of America, the GOA. Folks, if you've got, you need to understand who the GOA is. And there's another great group out there called Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, the JPFO. Go to both of those places on the web and learn about those. They're both great organizations, and frankly, I think they represent the Gun Owners of America. For the NRA says, we're protecting hunting rights. Let me tell you something. The Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with hunting. It was not intended for that. Thomas Jefferson said that it was the last bastion of defense against a government and tyranny, exactly. And that's what it's really about. Hey, come on to the show, caller.
Yeah, Mike, nice talking to you again.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, what you was just discussing there about unelected people, okay?
Yeah.
Now, I sent a real nice graft and letter to the governor about that. I think that the Highway Patrol and the Conservation Department are two perfect examples of something that started small and got away from us. I think that the director of the Highway Patrol and the Conservation Department should be elected by the people in a vote. And then the district managers or the troop commanders, okay, should be elected by the people in that district or troop, okay? I laid it all out real nice for the governor, but I never heard anything back from him.
Well, you won't.
Right.
You won't, because, frankly, that's so low on their priority list. Even if he agreed with you, he'd never, he'll never agree with you to the point where he's actually going to do something about it. But
get people that's unelected under control is to elect them.
Well, that's true, but the simple truth is, I would rather than that, I would rather see the disbandment of a lot of these, and I'm not talking about the state police, because I recognize that they serve a legitimate role, but I'm talking about the elimination of a lot of these federal agencies that we don't need, number one, and number two, are working actively against us.
Well, yeah.
I'm a proponent of small, microscopic federal government. Microscopic federal government, right? I want them so small that they're not even on the radar screen, so that you can focus in where it really matters, in the 10th Amendment rights that the states have. The states have the right to do everything that the federal government is not enumerated to do.
Exactly.
And what the federal government is enumerated to do is only about 5 things. Unfortunately, it's now become 50,000 things, and we need to get back to where the Constitution drew the line originally, and the Declaration of Independence, where they drew the line on the size of the government. The federal government does not, or should not, exist except for the 4 or 5 basic principles, which is making sure that our borders are defended, which they've hopelessly failed at, and making sure that they're allowed to coin money, and well, they failed at that too, because they handed that off to the Federal Reserve System, which happens to be bilking us out of trillions.
Yeah,
so
we need to get back to our Constitution. Clearly, I mean, we have to limit this government, and people don't understand, what our Constitution, how our Constitution, is laid out. Our founders, limited our government in the Constitution and gave the states the rights,
right,
and the sovereignty and the power in the states. And now, in the states, they're like, well, we have to do what the federal government does because they're the big guys, and they can. So there's no limit on the federal government.
The statists will sit there and tell you, oh, well, wait a second, it's not what it was then. Wait a second, folks. These are timeless principles that have absolutely no bearing on issues. But they are principles, foundational principles, that apply no matter what. So don't let the statists fool you into believing that because times have changed, the Constitution is an outdated, well-worn-out document. That is a lie.
Exactly. It's like the Federal Department of Education. There's nothing in the Constitution about the federal government being involved in our educational system. It's not in there. But yet, Mrs. Emerson voted for No Child Left Behind, which doubled the size of the Department of Education. But she made a comment the other day. She said, well, the problem with No Child Left Behind is we didn't give them enough money. And it's like, and I say, get rid of the Department of Education.
They have a $100 billion budget.
I mean, we've got to get back in control of our curriculum, what our kids are learning, get it back locally controlled and back to the state of Missouri. Get the feds out of our education system. They're killing our schools.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good point. I mean, not for nothing, folks, but there is, you wonder why the government is sliding into fascism. I'll tell you why. Because our federal government is in control of everything. And when they control everything, the end result is going to be fascism.